Welcome back to another episode of the Blockburner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's going on, dude?
And on the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
And then joining us today, we got Superfan and Dr. Meehan from Big Noodle. Appreciate you guys for joining us today.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, good to have you back on, dude. It's been what, like a year and a half or so?
Yeah.
And man, has AI taken quite dramatic leaps since then?
It's been a while, and I have a co-founder in tow this time.
Yeah, Dr. Meehan, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got introduced to Superfan and how you got involved with Big Noodle?
So I get to know Superfan during Bitcoin Amsterdam during Tap Protocol Hackathon. Actually, that we met in person. We met Benny. We met a bunch of people. So that was pretty cool. And it was actually the first time that I joined Bitcoin conference. I was pretty much like an outsider Web2 person before, but since then I love Web3 so much. So I'm more into Web3 right now. And yeah, pretty much that's when we met, and then also we start to work together at the hackathon, and then we talk a lot. So we try to cooperate together, and until now. So yeah, that's the short version of story.
Yeah,
we actually were solo. We were the only solo devs, so we got paired together.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's funny that's how you met Superfan, because that's how we met Superfan, is through a hackathon. I think we were like judges or something, and he showed some of his stuff, and Superfan ended up winning.
Yeah. Yeah, Superfan was tinkering at the AI, like...
That's right.
Realm before it was widely known as the cool thing to be doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were very much impressed. It was like, wow, I don't know if that was your first contact point with DMT and stuff like that. I'm not sure, but I think you kind of quickly understood and realized, there's substance to that, and then that's where kind of Heroes was born from.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, DMT changed the way my brain is wired, kind of. It's and I think that's how it happens for a lot of people. There's some things in life that really just rewire the way you see everything. 3D printing did it for me when that was new, and a few other things in life. But DMT did it in a big way. And so when I was figuring out how to do use AI for art and for generative tasks,
right,
DMT was such a good fit.
Yeah, we think so too.
Yeah. we still haven't stopped thinking about it.
Yeah, so much so that we built a whole platform to kind of like support this thesis, right? We think it's just a more interesting, generative process for digital creation. So obviously early days for that, but yeah, congratulations to you guys. You're basically the first block out on the platform, right? Because we launched a token that, blocked out, but it didn't pan out how we wanted it to.
Right.
So congrats to you guys. And I think a lot of it had to do with, again, your expertise and understanding of DMT and being the forefront showcase of how to utilize that to generate something of a collection.
Yeah, and not to mention the showcase piece here is the AI component of it.
Right.
The Deepin stuff.
Yeah, so if you can, just go a little bit, just like an introduction to what is Big Noodle, right? Because we said a lot of things there. There's AI involved, there's NFTs, there's DMT, right? There's a lot of layers to it, but what's the intro?
First, I want to congratulate you guys too. You built this platform that was a really big unlock for us to move forward in everything we're building. But you guys did it so smoothly, man. It's really rare to see a new project get launched, and with all the fanfare, you guys already have community around you and stuff, and it went pretty damn smoothly, especially from the outside looking in. You guys probably ran into stuff, but from the outside, it looked like butter. So congrats to you guys.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys experienced it too. Is that there are some features that you guys needed, and we were able to implement them relatively quickly. And I think that's the real game now moving forward in the context with AI, is that if the community needs some sort of feature, and it's up to the team to really move fast and move quick on these things, because the attention is fleeting, right? So if you don't maintain the community in that way, people will start having eyeballs drift in other places.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, give
all
us
right, so maybe,
give us your take on Big Noodle.
Yeah, I'll talk about Big Noodle and maybe I'll leave the Deepin part for Dr. Mien, so I'm not hogging the mic. Yeah, Big Noodle actually started with the idea that compute needs to be decentralized and it needs to be everywhere, and that was really evident with my first collection called Heroes, which was a big success. I launched with you guys on the historic block pad.
Yep.
And what a ride that was. That was also an amazing platform, and it helped me build a big community and a really tight community. You know, like they stuck by me through so much, and you know everything takes longer to build. Lots of pivots exist in life,
Yep.
and especially when strategizing around something like AI, which changes the direction of the wind so frequently, right? Today's favorite model, today's golden child, could easily be forgotten next week. So,
Yep.
So it means that as a dev, as a builder, you got to stay flexible, and I'm guessing it's probably difficult to find the set of community that can stay on board and stay as flexible, right? But we found that, and I think it has a lot to do with ordinals, how ordinals mindsets are in the first place, right? It's we're here for art, but we're here for something deeper than meme coins, and you know, Big Noodle was trying things and throwing them to the curbside a lot, and what we landed on now is that we're ready to launch a bunch of features. We're ready for a token, and that was forming for us right around the time that you guys announced Nat.fun. And it's like, okay, this is Kismet. This is perfect. We're about to go large, and we need to launch a token. We're going to do it with the block runner because we're going to get the band back together in a sense, right? I think you guys figured out how to speak to the world, to the public with your platform, and it exactly aligns with what we want to do. Take our community to the next level. So maybe I'll leave it to Dr. Mien to describe why a Deepin is important and why compute is scarce, maybe also.
Yeah, so pretty much it's like when Heroes is on stage, right? Superfan was looking for a bigger compute power that could literally like support his coffee UI stuff to generate images, and he found that no, we don't have much compute power. So that's when Deepin the idea comes in. So we were pivoting a lot, but basically Deepin with a decentralized AI infrastructure. This is not like so Deepin is short for decentralized physical infrastructure, but our Deepin is relevant to AI infrastructure, basically AI hardware, like GPUs and CPUs. So there's another word for Deepin actually. It's called DEP AI. It's called depth AI or whatever. So that's what the Deepin that we're referring to, which is we have different small boxes that we contain different CPUs and GPUs, and we optimize the specs of that. And then it's spread out around the whole world, which is fully decentralized, that could support people's compute power. And we're able to lower down the cost by rerouting different tasks to different boxes, small boxes, that is our Deepin AI boxes. And then for people to use the so-called tokens, now it's localhost, but let's say it's the tokens at a very low cost, and we are able to reduce the cost down to 90%. So this is a very huge thing for us to do it in a decentralized way. And other than that, since the Deepin, Superfan will be talking about compute as a new asset class, because this is very much relevant to what we've been inspired by Nat as well, because you know nowadays as Elon and also Jensen Huang, they were talking about energy as the new asset, right? And they're going to build like space, the AI data center and stuff. So when Nat comes out, it's literally like using the energy of Bitcoin. Literally, it's like converting energy to to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is like a POW side, but we see energy as intelligence here. This intelligence is literally AI, artificial intelligence, and we see those intelligence, those compute as a new asset class. So when we talk about the asset class, we refer to the traditional ways like, gold, bonds, like stock market, and also cryptocurrency nowadays, Bitcoin and stuff. But asset class can be defined in AI era in a very different way, which is the compute power. So that's what is hidden behind our whole decentralized AI infrastructure. The physical principle of that. Yes, Superfan, do you want to add?
I'll just add that the asset class piece is really important because once we started reframing compute as something like an asset, as something we can ascribe value to, it started to open our eyes to other kinds of product and other ways of operating what was going to just be a simple Deepin. Now, it can be the basis for other kinds of tooling that I think we'll get into.
Yeah, I wanted to add that Deepin, the key word here is decentralized. And since we met, Superfan, you've been talking about a Deepin infrastructure. And at the time, even then, it was a good idea. But not until it was Anthropic who released Fable and got shut down by the government. That's when it was clear and obvious the use case for Deepin. So we were actually about to record a video and to talk about specifically AI infrastructure, specifically being decentralized. And we were going to talk about, and we still are going to talk about Big Noodle at the end of that video. So the most critical thing is what happened with Anthropic getting basically shut down by the government is the very thing that you're trying to mitigate with a decentralized physical infrastructure.
Absolutely. I mean, there's two bottlenecks that we see today. We've seen the electricity bottleneck for a while. Data centers can't get enough power. Even if they have to wait for GPUs, they can still get them, but they can't get enough power. And now the government has shown us that, the topics like censorship and sharing technology with neighboring countries around the world is an issue that has to be contended with. And Anthropic they have no choice. They can't do anything about it. They've got to comply. And, under the surface, there might be other parts of this, other kinds of politics brewing, because if you recall, Anthropic said no thanks to helping with using their AI for war.
Yeah.
So there's competition there and politics playing to that, and decentralizing both the power use and not even needing to think about those kinds of politics are what are the main ingredients to a decentralized version of a compute network. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's we don't have to comply. In fact, I can't turn off the network if I wanted to when decentralization is well built, and that's the truest, most private, most uncensored form of compute there can be.
Yeah, totally agree. It's absolutely critical, and sort of the thesis statement for all of cryptocurrency is the whole decentralized nature of it, right? And so now having the AI compute as an asset class is a very kind of like apt way to explain what's happening here, because like you're saying, you can use energy for all kinds of things, right? A toaster, the Bitcoin network converting energy into security, and then now you're converting energy into intelligence. Like that's exactly what's happening here, and it's probably going to be one of the more critical narratives in cryptocurrency space for the next couple of years at minimum.
If there was ever a reason for a cypherpunk's blood to boil, it's this kind of stuff happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. So when it comes down to kind of initiating this whole new network, if you will, so it kind of starts at the ground layer that you've identified as a new commodity class, which is the compute itself, right? So like, what needs to be added on top of that, as far as like, if you're creating a distributed network for compute access, does that mean you need to retrain everything from the ground up in order for it to be compatible to this kind of architecture? Or is it is it more of like a plug and fit in with what already exists? Like, you take the frontier models and then you can just kind of, I don't know, finagle their way to a distributed network.
Yeah. So the question is, can you take like a 200 billion parameter model and just like plug and play into this network, or do you have to do something specific to it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And finagle is the right word here because we're living in a RAM apocalypse at the moment. RAM prices are super high. They have been, and it's projected to stay that way for a while. It's having a trickle-down effect to storage. GPUs have been scarce, at least the Blackwells, for quite a while. That's NVIDIA's top chip. So finagling is a requirement here. We've had to work around, when Dr. Mian and I met at the TAP hackathon, the 5090 wasn't out yet. And the 5090 was just around the corner, and it turned out to be a paper launch. There were barely any available across the country, every state. That was a signal. And then when the RAM prices really started to skyrocket, we had to change how we thought about what was in the box. What's in our GPUs? It's not just a GPU; it's much more than a GPU in our nodes. And what I mean by that is it's kind of an integration in a box. So we can run huge models because we've got multiple GPUs, but we're also dealing with RAM prices because we're essentially putting something like a PS5 in there, which has RAM soldered in since before the RAM prices climbed. These were priced in already, so we're getting a ton of DDR6 that Sony soldered onto boards, pricing them in. So we solved RAM prices in this way, a bunch of those boards in here. We're using DJX Sparks because they're available. Those are our Blackwells. And we're building our privacy compliance, on-premises requirements, and, an easy administrative front end all into this box. So it becomes a network you don't have to build because it's a network in a box and they're aware of each other so you can link more together. And that's why I say finagle is the right word. This is very finagled, but also, made to be bulletproof.
Do you have a picture of this box? I think we do somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
is it on one of these tabs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, let's get a look at this.
Here
boy,
it is.
dude. There it
So
is.
we got the prototypes. We got the prototypes back, and to give you an idea, these are 18 inches cubed, which is quite big for a regular PC and really big for a laptop, right? And if you want to make reference to the power that can go into this, it's fair to say 4 Mac Studios at 10 grand each fit in here, along with a whole bunch of tools used, single board computers, each with their own RAM. So there's a lot of capability in here, and that's why it is this size. And to me, it's a throwback to the old days. I don't know if you guys will remember the name Silicon Graphics. Back when 3D first made the leap from supercomputers to the desktop, it did so in the form of a computer company called Silicon Graphics. This is like the Jurassic Park era when 3D was finally freed from the super high-end, super expensive realm to being able to be done at an agency or a studio or your own desktop, and those were in the form of these desk-side servers or desk-side workstations. So we're kind of bringing back this big box energy because we're putting a lot into it.
Yeah, this is really cool. This is because on the outside surface, like it doesn't look like anything, but inside it's the critical infrastructure.
It's a horsepower.
It's everything, but it's very similar to like looking at an early Bitcoin miner, right? Like as far as its value. But I guess so. What people need to understand? So this is a thing that anybody could acquire, right? Pay to have ownership of, and therefore, I'm assuming there's some sort of reward mechanism, right? In the sense, like if you run miners on the Bitcoin network, there's an incentive there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, there's 2 ways to look at that. One is that our Deepin is made of these instead of small kind of rinky-dink computers with old East GPUs in them. A lot of time people hear Deepin and thoughts go to those networks. And more power to them if they can find the jobs to render on them. But today the relevance is really in high stakes, big models. Video production is a great example of the kind of application those Deepins won't be able to run on those old integrated, GPUs or old ETH era GPUs. So this box is able to compete with anything you could build for the frontier models today, and do long form video. The earning is in the form of you being able to buy it to just run for running these kind of video production jobs, let's say. So somebody might buy this just for the earning, while others might buy it for dual purpose. When it's sitting idle, when you're not rendering video on it or running your company on it, it can also be earning. And we decided to go with a more expensive solution for our Deepin, knowing that there's probably going to be less people doing buy-in at first. But because it's so modular by nature inside, we're going to have easy onboarding at a lower cost and be able to add to it.
So are these units like essentially plug and play? Is it that simple?
100%. This is meant for an academic faculty or a video production studio or pick any number of persona that doesn't know how to architect their IT network for AI. And that's what this is built for.
Is it also like, you mentioned modular in a way, so then a person could acquire it and then add GPUs to it, stuff like that?
Yeah, or tie more than one of these things together.
Okay.
And they're purposefully, so they're 18-inch because we left room for the wings for 19-inch rack mounting also.
Oh, that's interesting.
So do they need like cooling of some kind? Like within the box itself? Does it need like fans or some sort of liquid cooling?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the cooling is the star of the show in this.
Oh, okay.
That's where a lot of experimentation has been done.
Yeah.
And, we're using DGX Sparks in here as part of the integration. And those are pretty small and they tend to throttle a lot. So we've got it to where there's no throttling happening on those Blackwell chips. It's cooling is what most of this case is about, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's really the motivation to go into space too. Is that there's like passive cooling through radiation, and it's all like 100% of the time.
So what's your vision here, Superfan? Like, do you imagine every household one day is going to have either one of these or something of similarity to it? And is that like a contingency to distributed or decentralized AI actually becoming a competitive force to centralized AI? Like what is the parameter requirements? Is it purely at the hardware scale, or is it like some other proprietary training methodology that's not a centralized thing? Like, what is the smoking gun there? Like, what would you like to see, or what is anybody who has like an emphasis in decentralized AI as like a savior for humanity? Like, what should we all be looking for? Like more of these out in the wild, or what other metric should we be looking for?
I love that you said savior of humanity. Having been the one to don the robe not too long ago, right?
Yeah. Meme coin Moses.
Meme coin Moses. And also, like, I'm here to do good work, right? I'm not here to try to sneak a semi-useless mini PC into every home. I want to build something that's actually relevant today and tomorrow as the winds change again. So, as the wind direction changes again. So the idea here that we're looking at is that this can go beside your desk at home, but we don't think that every home will have one of these. We think that since this hardware sits kind of in between home computing and data center level computing, it's like it fits nicely in this gap that's not met. This is the kind of thing that somebody could look at and say, I'd like to do a town size POP, which is a point of presence, or I'd like to do a city size regional POP, or go big and also think data center scale. So the idea here, I think, is that we might have folks who like the level of earning here and maybe grab a bunch of them and put them in a space where electricity is cheap and cooling is cheap. Now, their burden won't be as big as the big data centers, of course. So this can be residential or commercial, but I think the idea is, and let's see how it plays out. But I'm hoping that we'll see pops of these coming up on the map, and it might not be in every home, but it might be in every town or city.
Mm-hmm. Can you go through the incentivization model for something like this? Like, is it based on compute, things like that?
Yeah. So, and I've been hogging the mic, so maybe Dr. Meehan and I will share this. But the idea behind creating an asset class, to commoditize commute means coming up with a metric. And we're still working on this, by the way, but I think we'll massage it as time goes. But it's a measure of intelligence per watt, right? And in the past, we used to measure compute in flops to teraflops. And then we stopped using flops altogether, which was a compute measurement, and we started using power consumption as the unit of measure. When Elon put Colossus together, it was measured in watts, in megawatts. So we're doing the same, but we're taking a few things into account in order to really come up with the metric that defines how this box compares to other methods. And I think that's important because we'll see new technologies nipping at NVIDIA's boots, like TPUs and like new GPUs from China. So, it's hard, without a crystal ball, it's hard to see what that looks like, but the day is definitely coming. There's going to be diversified technologies, and the models keep getting better, and orchestration keeps getting better. So we needed to think of a way that we have a number system, a metric that will survive all that. And in today's world, we're looking at GLM. We're looking at all the biggest open source models, right? The Qwens, the Kimmys, the GLMs, and have to be able to swap them out for each other and for the new ones. And that comes in the form of that metric.
Okay, so that makes sense. So if you're running one of these open source models here,
Yep.
your earning capabilities is completely based on your hardware horsepower. Is that like basically the correlation?
Yeah, yes, but the metric also lets us equate this to value that might work in a yields pool or a kind of equipment factoring where crypto comes into play and money comes into play. And that's where the metric lets us spread our wings a little bit and say our compute capacity has this much value attached to it if you want to get in on this pool for a big job, for maybe a reservation of 6 months of compute from a company. One thing that happened recently that really excited me is there's a VC called Crucible Capital, and I'm a fan of them. They do great Substack posts and essays, but they started doing investments in companies by carrying debt against their data center. They own GPUs, right? And it's what you expect of GPUs. There's scissor lifts going up and down. There's a ton of compute in a warehouse that goes on forever, Indiana Jones style, right? But but what they're doing is instead of investing money into companies, and the most recent I think was something like $26.5 million into a startup that was 100% valued against their existing GPUs. And this to me is us entering the era of what we're talking about where compute capacity is an asset class.
So are you saying that that Crucible, they got a $26.5 million loan to make investments with, backed by the compute power?
Exactly.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's basically like DeFi in a way. If you have some Bitcoin, you can use that as collateral to get a loan against.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing here. We're essentially creating something that looks and smells like DeFi, and it looks and smells a lot like what Crucible just did.
So in DeFi, you can create several pools for a single token. So are you envisioning the same thing, is that people are creating like compute pools that you can contribute to when there's a lot of activity in that pool, and therefore you have the capability to earn because now your unit is being utilized in that pool? Yeah,
that's what our yields product called Boolean looks like. And I guess maybe I'll turn the mic over to Dr. Mien because yields on Aave and Morpho and compound, those have a lot of rehypothecation. It's a lending protocol after all, right? It's about reuse of a dollar or a dollar equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you take over, Dr. Mien, and talk about what factoring is? Factoring is at the heart of this.
Yeah, it's like a factoring company, what a factoring company is doing. So if you switch to another tweet that it's like dynamic, it's actually somehow like a shift. That tweet, which is, we have a recording for that. So basically, the Boolean we're talking about, it's a combination of bullish, and also Boolean, and that's called Boolean. So we basically make use of our Web2 revenue, which is exactly our purchase order. And as long as people see that we have our Web2 purchase order, which is in the real world, and it's very hardcore thing, that they see that it's a guarantee for them to put money in our pool. And we can make use of that pool of money as well for our daily, production and stuff. And then they're going to get the yields. But this yield is guaranteed by Web2 revenue and Web2 purchase orders. So this is basically the whole cycle of that. So if you look at, if you switch to another tab, which is, there's
Is it
exactly
this one?
Exactly this one. And if you turn on this video, this is something that I made. Yes.
Hey everybody, this is
okay. There's probably no voice during, so that's at first it's our TG that it has passed. So basically, because we are Big Noodle, and you can see on this panel the different chefs there, and actually they are the person that put money in our yield pools, right? And after that, so for example, if you deposit $1,000, right, and then you can start cooking, right? So, and then afterwards, you can play to get some extra, dollars that you want to earn. This is part of the yields as well. But other than that, if you don't want to play that, it's sort of like a random jump, and you can just jump in order to get more money, basically. Or if you don't want to play, it's fine. And then afterwards, you get more of the yields. For example, like 10 to 20% of yields, which is the APR here. And then this yields is based upon our purchase order. So if people didn't see our purchase order, we don't create the pool. If they see the purchase order, we create a pool. So this is sort of like monthly generated pool here as a guarantee for people to, it's like kind of like assuring people to put their money in, and then make sure that they get the yields and the principals back.
I see.
Yeah,
so,
let me just add that those purchase orders can be sales of the nodes. It can be sales of compute from the network, or other consumer AI that we'll be doing, since we sit on a wholesale AI network. So we'll be able to keep adding these demand generators.
Can you go through what's the correlation between the activity between these characters here? They are indicating compute processing. Is that what's going on there?
They're indicating different people who are, put money in. So they're literally like different chefs there. And then if you deposit some money, you become a new person inside that kitchen, actually. So this is like that. Well.
Okay. So is this a simulation that's in real time, or is it like basically a PvP game?
Well,
no, there's no PvP here. It's not a zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game, actually. Because if it's PvP, then it should be like a token, and there's transactions, they are buying and selling, right? It's just like a Aave yield pool.
I see.
So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, think of the first half of this as a visualizer.
Yeah.
But the second half, it's really Dr. Mien who pushed to gamify it a bit, and give folks a chance to earn more, because these will probably be monthly epochs. So there's a lot of time in between.
I see.
So what is the time duration for, let's say I deposit $1,000 and I'm getting the 20% yield, like for how long does that yield occur?
Well, at the end of the epoch, your wallet sees the what is essentially a profit share. That's what the yield
Right.
literally is,
Right.
and it's not a guess or there's no creative math happening here. It's against the purchase order. So the numbers line up with what was known at the beginning of the epoch.
Okay.
So what's the?
I don't know if that answers your question, but essentially the work is done by the end of the month, and so that's when POs are fulfilled and everybody can profit share.
And so the epoch lasts for a month.
Yeah, we might play with that length of time, but that feels right to actually receive the order, execute upon it, and get paid.
Okay. And then the percentage yield, I assume, goes down if there are more participants.
Yeah, and we're going to experiment with how to cap that also, because it doesn't make sense if we're no longer competitive against traditional crypto yields as they are, or even like federal bonds. Like, we don't want to be in that territory. We want to mop up in terms of APRs. Mm-hmm. We want each pool to be a very healthy APR, so that this looks like something different.
Okay, so these pools
double digits.
Right, yeah, double digits, right. So these pools, is this something that if you're a participant of the network and you wanted to create a pop, is this something that you create on your own, or is this like network level contributions here?
This is network level, but we want to incentivize folks who are taking part in other parts of the network to do well. One idea that we're trying to make work is that anybody who holds UNATs from our launch on that.fun also might experience better APR, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. And what was the motivation here to create the game? It's basically, if you were to be successful at this game, then you are just mining just a little bit more APY than someone who isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can just jump. It could be in another form of games, but I feel like if the game is simpler, then people just would like to, earn some extra. So if you just literally don't move, you probably get nothing out of that. But if you just move a little bit, and then it just get you another bowl of noodle worth of cash. So that's the way to do it. Yeah.
Are these games?
I'll add something, Will. There's a bit of compliancy here too.
Oh, I see.
The Howey test calls for skills when executing work.
Sure.
And we can't give away bonuses if somebody doesn't apply some form of skill.
Interesting.
The profit sharing part, which is air quote yields, that's legal. That's fine. There's a people are laying down money to work, and there's a profit share, and that's legal and fine. For the bonuses, which we really wanted to be able to offer to make this a little bit more fun, there has to be a game element actually legally.
Yeah. Okay.
So are these games generated, using some AI, vibe coded app that's supported by the by your network? Is it kind of like a demonstration in a sense of like, what can be developed?
Yeah, like let's say we make a game. Could we somehow plug this into this network where if people, let's say, hit a rock all day and, it's verifiable that a human is doing it because we've implemented CAPTCHA, can we plug that into this?
Dr. Mian, that's you since it's your game.
Like you play the game for the whole day and get addicted to it, and then also get more money, right?
Right.
And also, so your question is like, what do you mean, like the network effect of that?
Yeah.
Or
I guess it's more of like the idea, because obviously you need to build a network effect here, right? You need to onboard
developers, creators,
a lot of demand for this compute, right? So therefore you got to develop, or somebody has to develop, some sort of first-party application or development environment, something that's connected to this network that's, obviously has generated something of, substantial attention value, whatever, all the things that we identify.
Can demonstrate number go up.
Right, like Pumped Out Fun as an ecosystem is an application that does very well in the crypto space, right? It's got a lot of users. It generates a lot of churn and revenue and activity and such. So, assuming a platform was built similar to Pump, but it's utilizing, the core infrastructure you put together here, and it's onboarding people who can, contribute to, whether it's a game app or just, image generation, video generation, whatever, right? You just want to grow your user base. So that becomes like the actual, the attraction here. Why I want to purchase these compute units, right? Because I want to contribute to these pools that are generating a lot of churn and revenue, right? I was just wondering, like, if that's the plan.
Of course, it's like, so this is like a sort of like 2D version of the game, right? So later on, because Superfan is also very good at Unity, which is 3D, and if we want to improve the game, like the game engine, we could make it into like 3D. So basically, instead of, so if you look at RV or Morpho, it's literally like very dry liquidity pools, and then people put money in, and you see the yields like every month. So this is literally just like the statistics. But if you gamify that, so this is just like part of the game. We can think of any like other forms of the game, like hitting the blocks and stuff, that's relevant to Bitcoin narrative and things. So everything could be changed here. So this is only the original version of the game. But for sure that if people like to play the game and they feel that they are part of this energy game, that if they deposit more money, if they take part in the game, they feel like that they are in vast majority of the world, which that everybody is contributing to the new asset class, which is called computer. That is pretty fantastic. So we are all exploring that GameFi thing. So
I got what you were putting down, and I really like it, and I think it's now part of the product requirements. I think we gotta let people not be able to game the system, but be able to do like a Roblox type ability to build,
right?
And allow that to be an attractor for people to get those bonuses. What better incentive for making mini games, right?
For sure, it cross-sects with other popular asset categories in crypto, right? GameFi, and there's a little bit of resurgence on that around happening in the Solana ecosystem in particular. I think a lot of it has to do with it's a reinvigorated appetite centered around AI and like how AI can transform things around gaming and the experience itself, right? Because a lot of these new iterations, they're not doing anything different from like a tokenomics perspective or like a game theory perspective. It's stuff we've seen before, but it's interesting again because it's like you said, it's like Roblox. It's now accessible for everybody. Right, the act of creating a game, like it's not just this thing like a game studio has to raise millions of dollars just to put something out to even give it a shot, and you could vibe up a cool game in a weekend, right? And then that's getting
more than
people.
Ever.
Yeah, and you guys have the perfect kind of like infrastructure set up to again like just build one of these builder environments and kind of like foster a community around that, because you know how crypto is. Everything is centered around community and network effects, right? So
no, it's a great idea, and I think we'll look out for your consultation check once we build it. The idea's coming from you right now.
On top of that, it's something where you don't have to burden yourself to make everything for the network. Is as long as you build a structure where people can contribute, and clearly there's AI is not going to go away, right? So if you build a structure where people can contribute in the form, let's say just a game, that means that that developer, part of the community, is contributing to kind of like bringing eyeballs to the network here, and also connecting other shiny objects that happen to glisten a little bit more for the moment to the network itself.
And anything we can do for developers to also make a buck is just going to be a good day for them, and they'll show up for that, right? So it's a great idea. We didn't look at it that way.
Cool.
But I love it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is I guess, I don't know, I have like a sixth sense now at this point, because I spent too long observing this crypto market, right, and trying to understand like what is it that makes people click.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the only way we're able to kind of identify opportunities in the market, before everybody else. So it's kind of like, that's just my understanding of what I would assume people would want to experience in order to basically, deduce a bullish synopsis around this whole thing. And the reason why that's important to us is because, you launch through our platform.
Yeah.
The better you do, the better the platform does, right? So it's kind of like, this is how incentives are aligned between platforms and their deployers, right?
Yeah, agreed. Every word.
Okay, so let me go back. Let's take a look at this one. So let's talk about the roadmap here. I'll make this bigger, that way we can see it. So talk about like what is next? What's happening right now? You guys graduated from nat.fun, and what are the next big steps here that you guys are undertaking?
Sure. So when you look in the middle of this roadmap, the privacy node and the comfy node, those are mostly the same hardware, right? It's that box we were looking at earlier, but they're two very different types of customer, very different vertical markets. So the node itself is horizontal and lives on our Deepin, but the verticals here is video production and the privacy node. Now, the reason privacy is a really safe bet moving forward is that we think the rest of the world is going to follow Europe in its rigorous compliance around privacy. If you are a law office, if you are in healthcare, you already have strict rules around privacy. But in Europe, you'll find that privacy regulations are pretty stringent across all sectors. And that's probably not going to go back in the other direction for us here in the States either. We think that on-premises is going to grow in a big way, and that on-premises means that you host some of your own hardware, right? You might bring back knowledge bases from the big frontier models. You might even, in a private way, hit some of the big models, their APIs. But work is being done in privacy-sensitive things like names, addresses, salaries. That all lives on-premises in this box. So strong belief that that's a huge demand generator for the work we're doing and what's going to live on our network. The other one is the Comfy node. Now I've been invited to join the team at Comfy actually. Comfy UI is software that allows making graphics and video and really anything, but that's been their big success is in this disruption of Hollywood in their software called Comfy UI. And they just got their $30 million seed round. Seed rounds are crazy these days. And they went from bunk beds in a hacker house in San Francisco to having offices like just a few weeks ago. Wow. So it looks pretty solid that I'm joining their team as a forward deployed creative technologist. And the first conversation, it started with these boxes, and that's, with our nodes basically. And so we're probably going to have the stamp of approval in calling this company node, naming it for the software. And this is the software that all of Hollywood production is looking at, using, or want to learn. They have to learn it. Mm-hmm. So these are two really strong areas to start. And the sales of these boxes basically back our yields product, which is Boolean, just under that. At the top is Panama because it's almost like built in that if we're already doing privacy nodes, we could put a front end on it and compete with the VVV token, which is doing great, and I applaud them. Venice is a great platform, and VVV has been on fire, on a tear for a while. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're happy to be capitalist here and eat some of their lunch, because we've got the back end built out. And the last part of the roadmap is to finally get back full circle to where we started with Heroes. The UNATs with our launch on nat.fun, or part of the Heroes universe. We created another archetype, another type of character called Cyphers, so they'll be here too. And they'll be part of this story that is DMT driven. So Bitcoin blocks will drive every episode of a story. And, a year ago, even 2 years ago, we didn't have the quality of the models or the compute to make these episodes good, but we do now, and we're about to be sitting on a whole network of compute. So, so creating some IP around the characters that are in the UNATs from that fun, we'd love to be the first success story doing that. And Will, maybe if you go to another tab you have there,
Sure.
which is our reveal page, I just want to, yeah, that should be it. So there's a random button there. Feel free to click on it while I describe what's happening. So we graduated fairly quickly, right, on that fun. The day we launched, we did a lot of strategic preparation. I built this reveal page in order to bring Ordinal's community in. And yeah, feel free to keep hitting that random button if you want. These are the Cyphers characters. They're a character that lives within the Heroes universe, but really what building this page is about was to kind of vampire all Ordinal's communities in a friendly way. We wanted to rally all the folks that are in the same boat as us. You know, they're in communities, they love their Ordinals, and I figured they'll understand when we say we're doing a launch on that.fun. And what I did was I took any inscription ID for bitmap stamps, Bitcoin stamps, and all Ordinal collections, and I set up Comfy UI to create this alternate art, right? So if you look at the text that's on these graphics, you'll see this is a Bitcoin punk, and there's an inscription ID at the top.
Yeah.
Somebody owns that. That's in someone's wallet gathering dust. But in this case, there's new art that is referencing that inscription ID in order to create the art. So this is reliably recreatable every time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change. There's nothing random about it.
It's deterministic.
And it's totally deterministic, exactly. And these characters will be part of the ongoing story. But this was a free way and a fun way to say, hey, everybody, look at what we're building, what we've built, have fun with it. And by the way, we've got a launch on that.fun coming. And so maybe this is just this story is a nod to being strategic and using community and reaching out to the extended community.
Yeah, the designs here, I mean, you're definitely speaking to me here. Just like the cypherpunk aesthetic here is really good. So I'm going through the random button here. So I'm seeing Bitcoin frogs and let's see the inscription ID. So how many communities are involved here? Is it all of them? Is it like specific ones?
Well, I didn't want my my GPU here getting hammered all day, all night. So I was able to create, I created 20,000 pre-rendered ones that you're looking at here from about, I forget, it's close to 20 communities in here. I couldn't hit every one of them, of course. But when you show up with an inscription ID that's not pre-rendered in our database, it will render it. So if you want, in that field where the inscription ID is right above your mouse,
yeah,
if you want, just type some random numbers and it'll generate a brand new one.
Okay.
Live demo. Actually, that's not rendering right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Let me hit random again, and then I'll erase some and then replace some.
Okay, I got one rendering on my side, so it's definitely all working.
Okay, let's see.
The computer is, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I had too many characters. That's what was happening.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that could be it. So this should, in a moment, pop up,
Yeah, there it is.
and that's a representation of that feed. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one says Ordinal Supercommunity, and I just randomly typed in. I erased 3 characters and I put in 3 numbers, and this is absolutely infinitely random here. And so we got a brand new character as a result. So that's really cool.
Yep.
So what do we do with these characters now? Now that they exist,
So they're
or
going to be part of a story, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're it's always fun to give back to the OGs at different stages. So folks who are here for this Nat.Fun era of our growth will whoever took part in this experiment. I'm also capturing their inscription IDs. So we'll figure out a way to do something really cool for everybody. I don't know what that looks like yet. Yeah. But in the meantime, these are all characters that live in the Heroes universe and will be part of an episodic DMT-driven show.
Yeah, we're starting to see that a lot more often. As soon as we started playing around with making our own videos, we assumed that every single project, every single basically Twitter account out there is going to be creating video content in the form of a series. And we're starting to see that pop up regularly.
Yeah, basically create your own universe, right?
Yeah.
It's like a new expectation from brand identity.
That's right.
It's like,
now you have a full production, infinite quality production, all that stuff. So everyone should be making, that kind of content.
Yeah.
Well, imagine what that looks like when you're not paying C-Dance's token cost.
Yeah.
When so I'm sitting on a Deepin where it's basically wholesale prices to me to use compute living in people's homes or at their offices, and it'll be great to just drive all that down. Fable's cost is intensely high.
Yep.
But what if you could get Fable-like intelligence out of GLM for free or close to it?
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
Yeah, it's huge.
What's your prediction on that? Like, is it achievable? I saw like their latest benchmarks. They're not far away, right?
Yeah, they're not.
That's what they're claiming. So, so what does that mean? Like, with enough time, they'll be in parity, and then like you're saying, now we can get, lower the cost of everything. Does that mean these big companies, these big IPOs, that's the bubble popping? Literally eating their lunch, like you're saying?
So I think there's always going to be this neck and neck race, right? The frontier labs leap forward and the open source labs close the gap. And I don't really see that changing, even if the methods change, even if transformers change, even if methods of harnesses and orchestration give a leg up. I think we'll always see this tight race getting tighter with leaps here and there. That's just my prediction. I think we can't go wrong with leveraging open source and staying on top of it, because it's not going to lag behind. It'll only ever catch up, and for a while at least, best the frontier labs.
So what do you think is crypto's killer value add here in context of this neck and neck race or competition with DAI versus CAI? I feel super strongly about AI being crypto's killer app and vice versa. They fit so well together. I think this was true before we even saw AI, doing the leaps and bounds that it does, but it's going to continue getting there. X402 is a great technology. We haven't seen that take center stage in the consumer world yet. But when both of these go super consumer level, they're going to do it together. That's, crypto's, it feels like it's built for agent rails and vice versa. So we just haven't seen it yet. It's still being built. We're still a handful of years in on the crypto side, and we're still 18 months, 2 years in on the AI side. And the best consumer app you could point to in AI is still ChatGPT. That day's going to change. More people are going to be using this stuff, and when they do, and when money plays a part, it's for sure crypto and stables. Yeah. Do you think, or have you formulated a concept in your own head where there's the ChatGPT moment for crypto AI is it's figuring out whether it's some new business model or just some new incentive loop to where, in combination with, access or integration with these open weighted models that are, in parity with what Anthropic or OpenAI puts out, but at virtually no cost, right? Where AI is fully democratized in its full capacity, right?
It's like a utility.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that's the horizon that we're heading towards? And because in my mind, I feel like that would be the most obvious. Okay, everybody rush over here and use these new systems, right?
Inevitable. I think it's inevitable. I'd like to think it can happen from the bottom up, but it may happen from the top down. It may happen from the visas of the world. I don't know what that looks like, honestly, but and it's probably going to look top down and very tidy, but yeah, that's the world's going to change for folks like us who work with one foot in each world, right? And I can't wait, but I don't know what it looks like. I hope it's an open source company that blazes a trail.
Yeah,
but
same.
Yeah, it'll probably be Visa and MasterCard though.
Yeah. All right, Superfan and Dr. Mian, we got about a minute. Is there any final thoughts here for the community? Any upcoming things that you want the community to engage with?
I'll jump in first because a big, huge thanks to our community. The ones in our Discord and the extended also. Couldn't have done any of this without you. We're about to go from a small token launch, smallish, right, to compared to what it's going to be. We're going to be one of the big names in compute, in hardware, and in privacy, and in disrupting Hollywood. And that's all thanks to the community. Thanks, honestly, to you guys, Blockrunner and Nathoff Fund, and watch the Big Noodle token rip when we start doing each of these launches. Thanks to everybody.
Yeah, Dr. Mian.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to add that we realized that there's a webathon, right? It's like in that fund, we also really like to participate in that. We already have our units, which is 296 units that we generated already, which is also part of the Cyphers sci-fi movie, images as a movie. So we are also very happy to participate in that hackathon to generate more images, and hopefully we win. And also, I hope that our units, because we provide some allocations, and we are going to allocate more units to our OG Pass holders as well. And other than that, hopefully that our tokens will go bigger and bigger. Yes.
Let's throw some of those units at your prize pool, guys. Let's join your giveaway.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, we can do that. I appreciate it, you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, so Superfan and Dr. Mian, thank you again for joining us on the call. I want to congratulate you guys for doing what you're doing. This Deepin play is exactly what a project like yours is in the right space at the right time, and it's going to hit very well just because of everything that's been happening out there. You guys are the solution to a lot of this, like censorship and all this stuff. So again, I really appreciate you guys for joining, and for everyone else, the links that are here are going to be in the description. They're all public, and definitely join Superfan's Discord, hit them up, and if you guys have any questions, hit us up as well. I appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.